Good day, viewers. Welcome to another AgChem training. And this, sorry about that. Sorry. All right. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another AgChem Zoom training. And I hope that everyone is okay after the weekend showers. I hope that if there's any damage to the farm, hope it's minor and we can recover. And with AgChem, we're all on boosting your yield. So going forward, we're going to push new products that can assist you to quickly recover and quicker get it into production. And today what we're going to do for halfway the program, we're going to basically hear some questions from the farmers or viewers so that we can cover any burning issues you have throughout the presentation. So yours truly, John I. Johnson, Product Development Agronomist for the Southeast region, which comprise St. Catherine, St. Thomas, and St. Andrew. So I'll just basically go ahead, right? And today's focus is leafy vegetable production. And this is the ideal time to put in some of your leafy vegetable. With the season being dry, farmers who have access to irrigation usually capitalize at this period. So the excellent time to put in some leafy vegetable and bring in some quick cash. All right, so let me go ahead. So topics of focus. So what are leafy vegetables? Seed selection, which you're going to realize is very key. Growing methods, land or grow medium preparation, nursery systems, weed control, pest management, disease and physiological problems, crop nutrition, and as usual, cost benefit analysis to get to understand what you need to put in to get excellent crop. So let's begin. All right, as you see, leafy vegetables are basically rich in vitamins, minerals, fibers, and is an important part of the global diet, right? I think based on crop production numbers, leafy vegetable ranks within the top 10 in terms of production and consumption. So these crops basically go very fast. So from field to end users is a high production volume. And this volume continues to increase. As the world population increases, the leafy vegetable consumption will increase, right? As you realize, most of your supermarkets now are focusing greatly on fresh produce. So there is always a room for leafy vegetable. So we're talking about the lettuce, the cabbage, the broccoli, the celery, the parsley, kale, which is becoming a more popular one. So there's a great room for increase and production, especially in the local market. And some of the reasons why you have this high profitability is basically the short maturity time. Generally, you have leaf vegetables ranging from about 6 to 12 weeks. And on the lower end of 6 to 8 weeks, you have some of your high-end crops like your lettuce, your parsley, which will give you a quick and high turnaround in a short time. And as I said, the high market price. So for lettuce, generally, it averages a relatively high price, which with kale and parsley and broccoli becoming some popular options for consumers. So those usually fetch a high price. And as I said, the demand is increasing year round. So the production the production volume will basically not be hampered by the end users because there's a constant demand. But before we decide to plant a leaf vegetable, several considerations we need to make, especially with seed selection. I think this is foremost one of the main thing you have to focus on if you're expecting high yields. If you're just doing a backyard garden and you're just growing to feed yourself, you may not focus too much on this. You still want to consider seed selection, but some person may not focus. But if you're an intense farmer, seed selection is very crucial. All right, and some of the criteria you want to consider. So you want to ensure that the variety that you're selecting is within your climatic condition range. So generally, I usually see heirloom seeds that persons may purchase overseas and carry in, which what being heirloom, a lot of those seeds come from a temperate environment, right? So they generally don't produce uh, well in our tropical conditions. So ensure that the seeds you're getting are within your climatic conditions. And with us, what we try to do, I can we try to bring in seeds that reflect similar conditions, which are tropical. So we get our seeds out of Taiwan, which and India, which display tropical conditions as Jamaica. All right. And next key thing, environmental factors such as your day length. For broccoli, lettuce, and other leaf vegetables, the day length is very crucial. If the variety is designed to grow in a short day length, you won't get that production when you plant it in the long day length. So what I mean is that if you buy a variety that does well between September to about January, right? If you were to plant that variety in about March going down, that variety for broccoli or cauliflower would either bolt or start to flower, right? So you wouldn't get that optimum performance from the plant. And temperature is a very key thing, as you're going to see later on in the presentation. Crop like cauliflower suffers a lot from that. So if the temperature fluctuates greatly, you're going to have basically uh, ill-shaped heads, or the end product won't be as attractive as you would like. All right. So as I said before, seed nature. So you want to know if it's hybrid or heirloom. A lot of times the heirloom seeds are not are resistant or tolerant to some of the fungal disease or viral diseases. Right. So that's why persons who are doing intense production seek hybrid varieties. All right. Next criteria, tolerance to virus or diseases, which is very key now. So with increase in production locally, where acreages have gone up, you have more spread or an increase in pest population. So you want to ensure that a variety that you are selecting can either withstand any virus or disease, or is resistant to that, right? So we're talking about some of the popular ones like or more mosaic, spotted wilt. So you'll check for that. Next factor, test date, the viability, which is very key. If you the further the date is from the test date, means the seed is generally less viable. Right. So ensure that the date of purchase is close to the test date. So that will even ensure that your germination is up to par and you're getting good numbers at the beginning. So test date is very key. All right. Varietal characteristics, another good thing. And this generally determines or is determined by your market. So if your marketplace is demanding romaine lettuce, you want to ensure that you're producing or you have acquired romaine lettuce and not iceberg, right? So understanding what's the shape the variety will produce is very essential, especially for those hotel markets or processing markets that demand a certain characteristics. Next factor on the characteristic is color, and I stated pop choy, which the local market tends to shy away from pop choys that are extremely dark, right? So those generally get don't have a great demand on them. So that's something to look out for. And finally, the yield. You want to get as optimum performance as possible. So you want to have an idea what the variety is producing or capable of producing. So the varietal yield is very crucial. So for cabbage, if you want to know if the variety is producing a 1 pound head or 3 pounder, right? So those are basically some of the factors you can use. There are other factors, but those are some of the key factors when you're selecting your seeds. And I'd advise you follow these criterias to ensure that you get optimum start to your crop production. All right, let's move on now. So as I said before, we don't only just basically state the problem or ask what's the problem. We try to solve it. So what we have done is to bring in different varieties of cabbage and other leaf vegetables, and we get them from two sources: No New Seeds from Taiwan and Namdar Seeds from India. And there you have it. You have your Summer Summit, Green Emerald, Tropic Globe, a matte green lettuce, red rapid lettuce, and our Olga red, right? And we have other leafy vegetables in stock, but those are some of the popular ones that we have so far. And with most things, we always have testimonial. We always try to test the product within the field. So there you have it. Farmers from in St. Catherine, such as Milton Edwards, basically he is a lover of the Summer Summit variety because he basically proved the effectiveness of the variety with tight heads. If you're into shredding, it's good for shredding. Firm, carries the weight basically, and heat resistant, right? So that's an excellent variety from him. Farmer Carl Bent in Manchester, you see holding the scarlet cabbage, which some person call it a red or a purple cabbage. And these varieties generally have tight heads, right? And range from about 2 to 3 pounds. Very nice cabbages, eating quality is excellent, right? Uh, next farmer, Mr. Mignot from Berners Lodge. You can see with his green emerald cabbage, and this field was actually grown in the midsummer, and the variety withstood the conditions, withstood the heat, producing nice head, and realized that the farmer didn't observe any splitting of the head, right, which is a common thing, or any tip burn in the cabbage, which I'll even talk about later. But this excellent variety for your cool or hot condition, a good producer. And a young man from St. Elizabeth with cauliflower. This is our snow white cauliflower variety. I love that excellent variety for in terms of cauliflower. Give you that nice head formation, and you can even gauge the size that you want. So if you want a small head, you'll generally plant the variety closer. If you're looking for a bigger head, you can bulk it up, you can space it wider to get your 3 pound head, but depending on the market that you're seeking. So there you have it there. Just a few of the farmers that we have that have proven a lot of these varieties that we carry. All right. So let us basically go into the meat of the matter now. So what I want to do is to take you step by step through some of the things you have to consider if you're new to vegetable production or an existing vegetable farmer, right? So the next slide will show growing method. And for several persons, open field may be the more common form of cultivation. While for backyard gardeners, you have your raised beds or your planting pots. And for the guys who are basically investing, probably have limited space and limited water resources, they venture more into their screenhouse or their greenhouse cultivation. Well, let me go through some of the main pointers of the different growing system. So the outfield cultivation, you have to consider more pests problem, the more pest and disease problem, and you're greatly exposed to the weather conditions, right? So you have to factor in your rain, your drought condition, as I said before, neighboring crops. Basically, you're fully exposed. I said open field. You're exposed to all of the elements that you can face. So you have to be on guard when you're producing in outfield systems. And for your raised beds or pot system, these generally a bit uh, these systems generally demand labor in terms of for watering, because the pot has a limited space or can carry a limited amount of water. The grower has to maintain some form of watering system on them. So you either have to do it manually using your watering can, or you can design sprinkler systems, mini sprinkler system or spider sprinklers, that could irrigate these setup. And generally, lower pest problem. However, depending on the source of your medium, growing medium, you sometimes have nematodes being passed on, or you have issues with damping off. So pythium being in the soil medium that you have acquired to do the cultivation. But you generally have low pest problem with these systems, right? All right, for greenhouse cultivation, intense production in a small area. However, with this being intense, you have a greater possibility of buildup of pests such as your trips, right? And that can be a major problem if you are not fumigating the house periodically, right? So trips, downy mildew, and powder mildew are generally some of the main things greenhouse growers have to look for. But for the plus, minimal water required. It's a controlled area, so the labor it's not labor intensive, and also you can get the turnaround in terms of nutrient application or production is basically great. So you can get a greater volume out of a smaller space. So those are some of the methods you can consider if you're new to or an existing vegetable farmer. All right, let me continue breaking down these methods. All right. So the unconventional methods are your hydroponic systems, and some of the systems usually come with structure or the system without structure, right? So you have persons doing it in the open, but in a hydroponic setup, while you have persons doing it in an enclosed system where the temperature is regulated or try to be regulated, control of pests, airflow, etc. And then now you have the aquaponic system, generally where nutrient is being supplied from your aquatic life, right? Yeah. But to break it down, some of the plus and minuses with the hydroponic system under structure, greater startup costs, right? So to basically build the housing and do the installation, you're looking at a much greater cost compared to outfield and just a simple hydroponic setup, right? So you have to bear that in mind. However, you can have a quick turnaround time, less application of pesticides, and also minimal fertilization. And the plants wouldn't be under severe stress as compared to your outfield cultivation, right? All right, so hydroponics without structure now, you're basically exposed to the elements. So we're considering pests, we're considering rain, we're considering drought, we're considering wind. So you're exposed to the elements, so you would demand more water compared to the guy who is in a sheltered system. And also you'd have to apply more pesticides depending on your location or proximity to other farms, right? So this is more exposed, but still under a control system where you wouldn't have to use as much fertilizer, and the labor wouldn't be so great as an outfield setup, right? Aquaponics now, this guy I said before, the nutrient is supplemented by aquatic life. So you wouldn't have to add as much fertilizer, but you have to be mindful as your source of your raw material or the fertilizer raw material, right? So you wouldn't want it to harm your aquatic life, which is very key to this farmer production systems. And generally with these systems, they stay close to an organic design, right? So that means they use a small amount of synthetic pesticides and more organic setups, right? So they have a lower pesticide costs in addition to labor and any other costs that an outfield grower would experience, right? So those are some of your more unconventional systems. And these systems are increasing yearly. Right now, there are several systems being installed in St. Catherine. So these systems will be popular going forward. All right. So since you are, after choosing your growing method, the next step would be the preparation. So be it land preparation or your medium preparation. For grow mediums, generally you would want to sanitize your troughs or and your growing implements. So either you're growing the plants in cups, mesh cups, persons have used plastic cups, styrofoam cups, whatever form of, or substrate you're using, you have to properly sanitize that. Also, with these systems, a lot of time farmers source seedlings from nurseries. So you have to ensure that those seedlings are properly sanitized. So what I mean, you can basically apply uh, effective fungicides that would control any fungal pathogen, right? So be on lookout for that, right? But for outfield growers now, they would have to basically spend a lot more time on the land preparation and they have to consider several things to do leafy vegetable. And one of those things are a balanced soil type. Generally, we'd all like to prefer a loamy soil type. However, that's not always the case. So, for farmers who have basically a clay or a sandy soil, what I generally recommend is to add composted manure to your soil. And what this does is to bring back texture, improve the texture of your soil type. Because for leafy vegetable, despite having basically shallow roots, if your soil leaches a lot of water, what the plant will generally do is to basically allow the root system to travel further to seek out that water. So what you have happen is that the plant is putting a lot of energy into developing roots just to find water and sustain its growth than basically than producing foliage. So that is why you want to have a balanced soil texture. So for both clay and sandy soils, you want to add your manure to give that structure back to the soil, right? And for extremely hard soils as clay, you don't want to have the water settling too much at the base of the roots, right? Because that will lead to a lot of fungal disease, and then you lose your rooting system and have poor uptake of the nutrients. So that's why it's even good to have that good texture. All right. I think that I've always focused on is the air to water ratio, which is a key thing in production. So for soils generally, I tell farmers don't overwater a crop, right? Because what happens is that you're suffocating the plant, because the water would basically block out all of those air spaces and then preventing any proper uptake of nutrients. Right? So you need air spaces so you can have that movement, so your macro and micronutrients up up in the rooting system, which will further lead to the development of the plant. So you want to ensure that you have a balanced air to water ratio. So what that means for guys who have their flood wet systems or your drip system or your sprinkler system, try to gauge your water application. If you can do it in the early morning, right, that would be very good. All right. If it's a soil type that drains quickly, you can do a late evening application as well to ensure that the plant has sufficient moisture to continue into the next day.
We are not
And a next factor, adequate
fertilizer.
drainage.
We just want to
Adequate drainage. Because as I said before, you don't want water settling in the root system. So constructing constructing proper drainage throughout your field, especially the clay field, is very ideal for your leafy vegetable because these crops are very susceptible to any water settling. So if it's a case that a farmer may have had, for example, lettuce in his field over the weekend, and there's a continuous settling of water over the plant or around the root system, generally have issues of root rot or stem rot, right? So good drainage is key when you're doing vegetable production. All right. So since you have taken those parameters into consideration, what you want to do is have a checklist of what you should do or what you should ensure you have before you basically go into your land preparation. So site selection. Key thing, as I said before, you want to ensure that's an area that is not prone to water settling or is an area that is exposed to severe drought conditions. Because these crops are very sensitive to heat stress, you don't want to plant a crop where you're not able to irrigate that crop, especially during the drought conditions as in the midsummer, right? All right. Next thing, control of your weeds. So you have the option of your contact herbicides, and these are your scorcher or your paraquat super. And I should mention this scorcher is basically an upgraded contact herbicide which has built in it an advanced adjuvant. So if there's a case that you're getting rain or slight drizzle, you are able to get control. However, if you do the application about an hour or two before the rain falls, before the rainfall, you'll definitely get control. All right, yes. And these contacts are usually used in the event that the tractor operator is coming within 3 days, less than a week, right? And you need to get down the shrubs or the weeds. So you're coming quick with a scorcher or your paraquat super, and usually we use them at 30 ml per gallon or 1.5 liter to the 50-gallon drum, right? But if you have time now, you can come in with your systemic option of your Glyphos AG41 and the big and bad Glyphos Max, right? Which is built in with an advanced sticker and a penetrant, right? So you wouldn't have to add your adjuvant to your Glyphos Max. It's already built in with it. And what these herbicides will do is to basically penetrate both the foliage and the stem and rooting system because they are systemic options. And generally, what I recommend is that you apply for, if you're mixing a drum, you can use about 5 to 6 pounds of sulfate of ammonia, and that will condition your water. So that will basically reduce the pH of your water, and also kind of trick the weeds that is getting some form of nutrients and taking the herbicide faster. And this method has always worked for me. So if you're having issues with controlling grasses, if they're getting too old, you can just apply the sulfate ammonia to your water mixture and then apply your Glyphos AG41 or your Glyphos Max. All right. All right. And generally, what I tell vegetable farmers is that instead of competing with the weeds, because after you do your plowing, your arrowing, and your bed formation, I know generally when you're finished with that preparation or when the tractor operator is finished, the land looks nice and clean, weed free. But once you get a shower of rain, like what I'm this weekend, or you start to apply water, there goes the weeds coming up. So generally I would basically wait the time and apply my pre-emergent herbicide options. So those are your Prol or your benzene, and both herbicides are fundamental inactive, right? However, the prol is encapsulated. So what that means is that the active is gradually released after spraying. So you don't have a quick release of the active. So it tends to stain up it tends to not stain up your spraying equipment or your ants as does the benzene. And these herbicides are usually applied 14 days before planting. So remember, because these leafy vegetables have sensitive rooting system, especially in the early stage, you apply them 14 days before planting. All right. And these herbicides, pre-emergent herbicides, would control your grass weeds and some of your broadleaf weeds. So when you apply this, you basically greatly minimize any weeds that the plant can contend with. And with reduced weeds, you have less pests and disease problems. So it's best you wait the period and apply your pre-emergent herbicides, right? Because more it's just a few selective herbicides on the market that can control control weeds within leafy vegetables, and those are usually grass solutions to control young grasses. All right. So take the time to apply your prole or your benzene. Remember. All right. Since we have basically controlled our weeds, the next step is to get the irrigation system in. All right. And I didn't focus much on irrigation in this presentation because uh, most persons are aware of some of the systems used. But generally, what you have your drip irrigation or your sprinkler irrigation, or some persons are using furrow irrigation. So for your drip irrigation, some of the plus is that minimal weed growth because the water is concentrated within the area that you want it to apply. You can basically do longer application over longer application over the period. So within a day, you're able to run that irrigation system a bit longer compared to your sprinkler or your furrow irrigation without affecting the crop. Right? No water is applied to the foliage of the crop, which is a big plus. Right? So we have less incidence of fungal disease, which is very key, especially with your cabbage or your broccoli production. Mm. And next factor is that these systems you can use to fertigate your plant. So you can supplement nutrients through the system, right, to enhance the yield that you're looking for. Right? With the sprinkler irrigation now, you are basically applying water over the foliage. So generally what I tell farmers to do in order to minimize any fungal problem is to apply irrigation in the early morning. And what that does is that as the sun is coming out, it dries off that excess moisture that is settling on the foliage. So we'd have minimal chance of any fungal disease. And some of the drawback to this is that you are getting you're supplying weeds with additional water, so you'll have a greater weed growth compared to a drip system. Right? An X plus though that you're wetting the entire area, so that creates a cooler environment for the roots of the plant. So you can get sometimes better performance from a person who is doing drip irrigation. And for the furrow irrigation, guys, generally you have to basically watch how many applications to the crop. So if you're on a clay soil, you know that for the week you sometimes do about 2 or 3 wetting and then you ease off, right? So you don't want that sagging of the land of the water around the root zone. Right? And those irrigate and for furrow, you're not wetting the foliage, so you don't have much fungal problem. However, because it's a thorough wetting of the soil, you will get additional weed growth. As I said before, with using the pre-emergent application, doing the pre-emergent application, you'd have less weed growth or less weeds to contend with. All right. And for leaf vegetables, as stated, these crops require adequate or sufficient amount of water to get that development because their leaf they tend to come under greater stress from heat, right? So they have to maintain a good transpiration rate in order to stay functional or effective to produce a good crop, right? So irrigation is very crucial. If you're not able to irrigate, ensure that you plant your crops within a period where you can have sufficient water being supplied to the plant. All right. All right. So after designing our irrigation systems, then we venture off into our nursery production. And you may say, Janai, what are doing it the other way around? No, I always suggest to farmers ensure that your land is prepared even before you set any seeds. Right? These are leafy vegetables, so within a week or two, they're out of the seedling tree or out of the nursery bed and ready to be planted. So if the area is not prepared within that time, you're going to generally have your seedling staying in the tray or nursery too long, and then you get issues with pot bonding, roots binding up, and then when you are ready to plant them out, you don't get the performance from them, and you say, John, wait, this variety is not so excellent. What I was saying is based on the time you have had the plants in the seedling tray, they have basically passed a certain growth stage, which you are trying to bring them back to that stage, and then hence you do not get the performance from the plant, right? So always remember, prepare your land before you set your seeds, right? Especially for leafy vegetables. Ensure that. And that will give you enough time to control any additional weeds within the field, right? So let's go on to the nursery production aspect. All right. This is a crucial part because you may purchase, for example, your 4 packs of cabbage, and then you put them in, and then you check it out. Four packs giving you about 8,000 seedlings, and then when you are ready to plant out, you basically boil down to about 4,000, half of the amount. Why? Basically your nursery management practice. I'm going to touch on some of the key components, but my colleague Mr. Park had done a nursery production video which you can take in later on to see a nursery management system in detail. But I'm going to give you some of the pointers based on our experience at AgChem. All right, so there are two options generally, right? So you could either go your seed tray or your seed bed, depending on your cash flow, right? So generally persons would for the guy for the guys who are doing larger cultivation systems, they generally use their seed trays, right? And what you want to start out with is your 1 or smaller cell trays. And the reason being is that with your greater cell trays, you generally have smaller rooting system. And with leaf,
Shanoy,
yes,
1 minute, please. Siobhan, can you please mute your mic? Actually, I lost no longer the host. It's Damien Francis is the host because I lost internet. So I'm asking Damien if you can just transfer back the host to me, please. To Georgia R. Go ahead.
all right. Sorry about that, yes. So for larger growers, what they tend to use is their seed tray option, right? And I said you can start with your 128 cell tray or smaller. And I know many of my growers would say, John, well, I'm used to my 200 cell, But with the 200 cell system, what you have is that you have a smaller root development, right? And you get and there's basically quicker pot bonding with that smaller cell, right? So what leafy vegetables tend to do is to establish quick rooting because they are sensitive to temperature and they have to maintain that water, that transpiration stream. They try to establish rooting quicker, and that is why a person who does a seedbed versus tray usually have a bigger ceilings compared to the guy who is doing seed tray because the plants are basically able to expand their root greatly instead of that narrow medium within the seed tray, right? So start with a 128 or smaller, get a good performance. And what I recommend is that try Agchem's TH germinating mix. It's an excellent formulation. So if you are in an area, especially that you have the temperature is high, for example, Lower St. Catherine or St. Thomas or Clarendon, you want to use this germinating mix because it will hold water longer compared to the alternatives on the market, right? So you wouldn't have to water 3, 4 times a day, probably 2 times, and you're all right. And you wouldn't have issues with that damping off because the water will be gradually uptake by the plant, so you don't have any sagging of the medium. Because generally, when you have a medium that drains quickly, what persons tend to do is overwater. So because they don't want the plant to come under any stress, they water more frequently. So they probably water about 4 to 5 times just to maintain that transpiration stream on the plant, and then which leads to your pythium buildup and then causing damping off, right? So the TH mix is an excellent option. All right. The next option is the seed bed. Seed bed, as I said before, you generally get larger seedlings from this option. And what I tell farmers, if you can raise the beds to ensure quick drainage and try to till that top surface so it's refined. Because you're going to apply your seeds on the surface, you don't want any large clumps that may impede the seed reaching the soil and getting that germination, right? So you try to till that area, get nice until, as the picture show, that's area nice until raised, basically moist. With this picture is a bit wet, but you get the picture. And generally what you want to create is a structure over your seed bed, right? Because the plants are young and being exposed to elements, you kind of want to cover them during the hot period to not scorch your ceilings, right? But this is a good way. It's cheaper. It's cheaper compared to your seed tray method, right? But in terms of labor, it would take more labor because you'd have to sow the seeds in the soil, take them from the soil, and then transplant them. So the time between transplanting or removal from the soil and transplanting has to be short. Where for the seed tray guy, he can delay because he has control over the watering or the basically movement of the seedlings, so he has more control over seedlings, and it generally is easier, it's quicker to remove and plant compared to the seedbed. But for seabed systems, there are several things we have to take in consideration. The pests, which is basically a major part to doing seedbed, because a lot of time you have ants within the soil, and in the next slide I'm going to go into solutions that we can use. Sometimes you have cutworms that you have to watch out for both seedbed and seed tray cultivation. All right, so in terms of nutrition, what we recommend is your Omex Bio 20 plus 45 at both at 5 ml per gallon, or your Agar Leaf Green Max plus your Root Max both at 5 ml per gallon. And you water the plants with this mixture. So you water the medium or water the nursery bed with the nutrition mixture. And for pest and disease control, a cutworm especially, this is a popular one in your nursery setup. And a pointer that I can give persons who do seed tray production. Generally, what you want to do is that look under your seed trays to see if you find any of the larvae. Because generally they would hide under the seed trays in the morning time, right? So they come out at night, do the cutting, and then afterwards go under the trees, and you're wondering, wait, I'm applying pesticide, but I'm not getting the results, right? Because the worms are basically under the tree, hiding from any contact with the pesticides. So look out for that. Mites control, you have a Nizra and a cure, right? Nizra control the younger stages while cure control the adults. And for damping off, one of the most effective product I've seen on the market and I've used is the Acrobat. Basically just 2 applications of the Acrobat at about 20 grams per gallon. You can water it. Water it would basically be more effective because the pythium is within the soil or within the medium, so watering it is very effective. You get excellent control of your damping off, and your topsin would be an alternative in that rotation. So to following these systems, you get this good control. However, for nursery bread, you may have to prep the soil. So what you have to do is possibly drench the area with diazinon or Caratrax to get some form of control of your ants or your cutters, right? So that your seedlings are not affected. Also to note, you have to watch out for slugs, right? Because the slugs are a major pest to leafy vegetable, especially when the conditions are moist. You definitely have to watch out for your slugs. So you do your application in your plant guard around the area, and you can either do it in a liquid mixture, or you can use 2 tablespoons, 2 to 3 tablespoons per gallon of the plant guard around the area to get the control. But we have completed the nursery management. What we have to do is to prep the soil. We're going to prep the area that we're going to plant out the seedlings, because despite you doing that preparation or application before in your nursery stage, you still have to prep the area that you're going to plant. So what you want to do is drench the area or the planting hole with your diazonon at about 30 ml per gallon, or your Caratrax at 10 ml per gallon. And both insecticide would control your cutters, your mole cricket, your grubs, whatever going to do damage to your plants as they come up. All right, and this can be this can either apply as drench with your knapsack, or run through the drip system via fertigation, right? All right, and generally we recommend adding your new Flim P, which is a great adjuvant, with holding the insecticide within the soil particle to get effective control. All right. All right. So before I enter into the pest and disease and solutions that we have to control them, look at this picture. I've intentionally placed it alone on the screen for you to get an understanding of why it is important to use adjuvant, especially with waxy leaf crops. So on that left side, you see where I had applied your Miller exit with your pesticides, and you see how those leaves are dark green. Basically, the product had made penetration with the foliage, so you're getting that sticking of the product on the foliage. So I wouldn't have to worry about the product washing off after I've applied, right?
I'm not seeing that.
You're
I'm
not
not
seeing?
seeing that on my screen.
Okay, you're not seeing the picture at all, or tilt
No,
it?
no, no. Pardon me?
You're not seeing the picture at all?
No.
Okay, I'm not sure why.
Probably you'll have to
Okay.
log on and come back on.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
All right. So on the right, the application was done without an adjuvant, and what you have happening, because we had used a water base solution, water base, you have the application being drizzled down into the center of the plant, or wash, or basically not penetrating the plant, right? So this is the importance of using an adjuvant. As I said, especially for your wax leaf. So your cabbage, your broccoli, your cauliflower, you need to use an adjuvant, right? All right. Let's go on quickly. So common insect pests that you have to watch out for. All right, your popular leaf miner. Basically, the bores tunnels within the foliage and continues to do that until the photosynthetic area is reduced greatly, right? It's a slow feeder. If the population is high, you have a quick breakdown of your leaf area, and it's resulting in poor production. Aphids, sucking insects that would feed on your plant, because by sucking, so they're taking the food sap from the plant, and generally they'll produce your honeydew, which will cause sooty mold growth on the foliage after the mildew, the honeydew built up is great, right? So those couple of places you have to watch out for. And trips, of recent times, about 2 years now, trips has become a major pest in lettuce cultivation, especially in the upper Clarendon and some lower areas like St. Thomas and St. Catherine. So those are places you have to watch out for. And trips are very, very minute. So if you're not aware of them, you would probably just observe the symptoms and not know what's going on. You'd probably think it's a fungal or nutritional problem, but here you go. You have trips. So watch out for that. Diamondback moth. The larva is a heavy feeder. So once the population increase on you, you look within a week or two, you're seeing your cabbage field or your leafy vegetable field turn into strainers, right? So a pest like this, you have to watch greatly and do proper scouting and application. Also, other pests, your root knot nematodes, which persons who do lettuce in confined areas like your screen houses generally will have a build up of nematodes, so watch out for that. So if you're seeing your lettuce not growing to full production, not developing, you may have nematodes, and we have control for that. So afterwards I'll go through some of the control methods. Again, slugs, definitely you have to watch out for these guys are very active. So if the time is moist, or if the time is the area is very cool, about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night, you generally see them coming out and doing some severe damage overnight. So watch out for them and make your right application. All right, what we do, we carry a series of options. So we're looking at our Caprid, Carbaryl, Indicarb, Cure, Caratrax, Definite Mimic. And you will see, you see I've ticked some of the pests that they control, right? So make note of that. So your Caprid will cover your leaf mine, your aphid, trips, etc. While a product like your Indicarb will deal with your cutworm, your diamond back moth. Your Definite cover a wider range, right? So from your sucking insects to your cutting insects. And then you have products such as a Mimic, which is a molting hormone that will basically force the larvae into molting. So if you can do early application on a Mimic in terms of the early instars, you'll get good control, because within 3 days the larvae will stop feed, and then you will get effective control. And the reason why it's even so excellent is that once you control the early instars, you wouldn't have to worry about great damage done to your crop, right? The later instars would generally stop feed. But once you control the early instars, you're looking on less foliage damage compared to the later instar. Yes, other insect pests, and there you have it. So we're showing you the options that you can use to do your rotation, right? And it's good that we provide a wide range so you can select from them. So I don't want to hear farmers purchasing 2 products or 1 product and saying basically spraying the crop for about 6 weeks with that 1 product. You have a long list to choose from. All right. All right, the next key one I should feature right here is your Omex Garland. And this is a garlic-based extract, which we have found to be very effective in some of your soil pests, and nematodes seem to be one of those. All right, garlic-based, and you can do drench application before planting and during planting. This is to note, it's not systemic. Right, so you have to try to apply the product before planting. So you want to control the pests before you plant within that area and during the time of planting. All right, so let's move on to our fungal diseases. So some of these you are familiar with, some you may not know. So your Cercospora leaf spot. Generally, if this can start from your nursery stage all the way up to end of your production, and these are not a good site, especially for lettuce growers. It's an awful site. You have to basically remove the damaged foliage, and sometimes if the damage is extensive, you can bring that lettuce down to the stem, right? So you want to have control, and preventative is sometimes the best option. Reason being is that lettuce is marketed for its leaf. So if you lose a leaf, you basically lose your poundage and lose your yield. So prevention is better. Well, for most fungal disease, prevention is always better, but especially Cercospora in lettuce. And you will know it by that circular formation, and then you have this white spot or a little light region within that circular area. All right. Then you have Alternaria. Generally, but based on the name, you have concentric rings display, and you have yellow lesions forming on the plant, and these lesions usually come together until it takes over most of the foliage. Right? A common one in the nursery stage that I mentioned earlier is a damping off caused by Pythium or other fungal diseases. And if your watering program is not stabilized, meaning that you're allowing the trees to dry out, then you're wet, then you dry out, then you're wet, you usually have damping off occurring greater. And your solution for that, as I said before, is the Acrobat. Other fungal problems is the black rot, which affect usually brassicas, especially in the rainy period. So like now we're getting extensive rain, you generally have black rot if you're not controlling against that. For and white rust, not common, but I've been seen where generally your callaloo or your lettuce or some other leafy vegetable generally have this farming, especially when the period is kind of humid, where you're having rain while the temperatures are hot. You generally have your white rust being formed, and bacterial sulfate is the next one. Excess rainy time now, so you have soil material being splashed on the plant, which leads to a build up and breaking down of the plant tissue. Right? Generally, a copper base would be solution for that. All right, so there you have it, fungicide option. And as again with the insecticide, we provide a wide range for you to choose from. And what I mean by wide range, and I'm not saying that we're giving you different trade names with the same active. We're providing products of different active that you can rotate within your cycle. And to note, the best method or the first method is your IPM, Integrated Pest Management Program. So you want to do a scouting, you want to sanitize, you want to take care in terms of your clothing, right? So that's the first step you should basically implement before even considering a pesticide application. So IPM, always remember that. There you go, you have your carbonism option, your Bellis, your Topsin, your Acrobat. And as I stated again, Acrobat is one of the most effective fungicide I've seen for damping off. 2 applications and you don't have to worry about any fungal or damping off problem, right? And your Sulcox effective copper-based fungicide. Several things to note about the Sulcox. Because copper base it will do damage to your blossom, but it depends on the rate of application. So if you apply it at the specified rate of about 1 to 2 tablespoons per gallon in the early morning and you have flowers being set, you'll have scorching of those flowers. All right. But however, if you apply it at a lower rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon in the late evening, you will get effective control of your fungal problem without getting that scorching. And I generally tell persons to apply it by itself because you don't want the copper to react with any EC or any phosphorus-based product. So generally, I apply Sulcox by itself. All right. At this time, we'll take a break we'll take a question and answer segment before we go into the nutritional aspect of the presentation. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead.
Yeah, man. Afternoon, Johnson.
Afternoon.
Yeah, man. Hanson here.
Yes, Hanson. Afternoon.
Cool. During the presentation earlier, you were talking about I think fields that are flooded I would have some amount of water, logging or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And possibly, if it's a land where you're probably using frequently, you probably have some built up of salts,
Yeah.
there on it. Is it possible that you guys have some product that would probably alleviate some of the salts or help to leave some of that salt out, or probably would create a compound or a bind to get some of that salt out?
All right, we don't have a specific product like that now in stock, but what we have now is we have our green stem or Bio 20, which are Foliar nutrition or biostimulant products that will kind of ease the stress. But that's a good point to make. I think we have to look into that because you're in which area?
Well, I'm in many areas, I work with Jamaica
Okay.
Forest Clubs, so I'm in many areas. So these are some of the problems that we face here.
Yeah, the salt built up, especially if you're taking the water from a source. with that built up.
Okay.
So that's something we have to look into. Yeah, it's a
All
good
right,
point.
cool.
Make a note of
Another
that.
question before I go. I'm gonna just ask you all the questions I have first. All right.
All right.
Second question. You were talking about air to water ratio. For a common person who doesn't probably have the access to labs and whatever other ways to test that, how can you do that in an articulated way for anybody who can probably also want to test the backyard or anywhere else?
All right. Well, one of the simpler methods is basically you can stuck your hand in the soil and you can pick up a sample to feel whether the soil comes together or clock together,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
if you push your hand in the soil and you just feel you push about they call it about 3 inches,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting settling of water, that mean the volume of water in that little space is greater than the air, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
after irrigating, you want moisture, but you don't want to have water settling in any form.
Yeah. Dripping, already dripping.
Yeah, or you can buy a tensometer if you have the resources.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. But for many persons who probably don't have that. But
Yeah, man.
final question. For Cercospora leaf spot, can it become systemic? For example, you do your applications, but yet still it recurs, over a period of time. Can it become systemic?
Yeah. That's a good question. Yes, the fungal problem can basically implant itself in the crop. Or however, a lot of times, why you have it occurring is that, especially if you're doing it in a structured area, like you're doing it within a greenhouse or a screenhouse,
Mm-hmm.
spores are probably on some of your implement, either your tools, your clothing, right?
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Or I've seen where vegetation around the farm, maybe hosts.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
want to remove weeds because currently I have a hydroponics grower that is having the same issue because
Mm-hmm.
he had acquired infected seedlings from a nursery grower, and right now he's having issues to control it. But he was trying to source organic methods. So right now we're
Mm-hmm.
going with the bellis application to kind of zero it and
Mm-hmm.
possibly do some amount of fumigation within the area to get it out and treating the seedlings. Yeah. So
Okay.
that was a major problem, especially lettuce.
Okay. All right. Sorry. It was the final. That wasn't the final question. This is the final question.
Yeah.
For areas that for example, clay soils that drain slowly or
Mhm.
sometimes not at all, it seems. Do you advise persons to put in tiles in the fields or those sort of systems?
Tiles. Wait,
Yeah. Those
tires.
perforated pipes. Again?
Wait. I missed that. What you said?
I'm saying those are perforated like tubes that can help to drain your soil. And
Uh,
does
the,
it
co-
and mhm.
the no, that's very innovative, but generally, depending on the area,
Mhm.
the land space that may be costly. What I see work very excellent, as I said before, is your manure. It's once you
Mhm.
use broken down manure,
Mhm.
you get
Compost. Oh.
you get effective structure out of that. Because I even showed a backyard grower recently where
Mhm.
he basically got some topsoil that was very clay, and just by incorporating the chicken manure in that soil, it becomes very
Mhm.
friable, getting good root development after. So,
Okay.
but that's an innovative idea. I think with us with a small area, it can be done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys focus on any mycorrhiza fungi any at all?
And no, we have products
Okay.
that have some like the Nutrihole,
Nutrihole.
Nutrihole, right?
Okay.
Or Agassiz, that is a humic acid and thing. But the Nutrihole will be the closest to any BioLife.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Johnson, thanks much. Helpful.
All right. You're welcome.
John or Damien, Francis, and this.
Damien Francis. Yeah.
I'm here, Mr. Johnson.
Yes. Afternoon.
Present evening. Afternoon, I should. Okay, so I have two questions. First of all, you mentioned earlier about selecting the right spray
Mm-hmm.
for nurturing, but I think I missed that that point where you mentioned the right tray selection. I think you mentioned the 128 and the 200 cell, but which one was preferable? Which one is the preferable one?
Oh, no. I was saying you want to start, the furthest you want to go in terms of size is your 128. I don't usually recommend 200 for your vegetable production. So 128 and lower would be the better options, right? Because
Why is that?
all right, why is that? All right, the rooting area that the 200 cell provides is basically very limited. So either you're going to transplant much quicker, or you're going to have to basically boost that plant to get a quick rooting, right? Or to supplement.
But so in other words, the more development you have in terms of the root system is the faster the plant develops from
Yes.
planting to healing.
Yeah. So as I said before, because leafy vegetables are basically susceptible to any temperature shock, what they tend to do, is develop a quick rooting system. So they won't have to worry about uh, trying to develop root after they have established the foliage. So they develop that system quick, and then focus on foliage development. But if they aren't able to develop that system, what they'll continue to do is focus on root development. So research have shown that in sandy soils, the root system is deeper, but that doesn't reflect in the foliage. All right, because the plant is on developing the root and not increasing the biomass too greatly that it can supplement it with enough water and nutrients. Understand?
Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
So my
Janai,
second question,
Is that
I reuse like the potting mix?
I don't recommend. Reason being is that pythium or any soil fungus may be in it, so I don't usually recommend that. I don't recommend that. Based on even farmer experience, I just say just acquire a new set.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I appreciate it, Mr. Johnson.
All right, you're welcome.
Janai, there was a question in the chat from Patrice.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying, are you saying the smaller the tray, the stronger the root?
No, larger the cell, the greater the root development.
And also from Chantal, what do you use to pre-treat the bed?
Pre-treat the bed. All right, you want
Mhm.
to use your diazinon or your Caratrax as insecticide, and for fungicide you can use your Topsin or your carbendazim.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And also Patrice had asked, can you speak on pak choy and the white flies on the back of the leaves? Did you touch that?
All right, no, I'd mentioned. Let me see. No, I never. No. All right. So whitefly, which is generally a common pest for most plants, is very resilient, right? So if you're not getting that application to make contact with the pest, you won't get that control. So you're saying on the back of the leaf. So possibly you're using a contact product if you're not using Caprid. If you're using a contact product and you're not getting that product to reach on the back of the foliage where the whitefly can either interact or the product make contact with the whitefly, you won't get effective control. For a product like Caprid, which is both systemic and contact, once a product is properly applied to the crop and the whitefly sucks on the plant or interacts with the pesticide, then you'll have control. So you have to be mindful of that. Yeah, but that's one of the common pests of leafy vegetable.
Anybody else have any question? One last question before you pick up with the presentation, Janai. How should the seeds be kept after purchasing to prolong viability and germination rate?
Oh, good question. Good question. All right. How I do it and how I usually recommend to persons, put it in your crisper area of your fridge. A crisper, so where you usually store like your vegetables in one of the drawers. That's the best area you can keep your seeds. Right. So not in the freezer, in the fridge area. So the temperature, what I've seen over the years is that the temperature of the fridge is ideal for keeping your seeds up to I've seen persons keep seeds up to 6 years. And you plant them out and they're very viable. You don't even have to soak them to get the germination. Just once you put them in, you get them germinating. So after you purchase, put them in the fridge. Because generally, some places don't have uh, cooler areas. Agchem does, but some places don't have cooling areas. So some of those seeds need to be stored at your cool temperature in order to maintain the viability. Right? So store it in the crisper area of your fridge.
All right, thank you. You can go ahead with the presentation.
All right. So going into the nutritional aspect of the presentation. All right. And here I've shown you some of the physiological or nutritional disorders that your leafy crop will display. And up top you see the tip burn. And this is generally your calcium deficiency. So if calcium is not moving properly through your transpiration stream, then you have the symptom being shown. And what it seemed like chemical burn to the tip of your plant. So you may think you have scarred your plant, but it's generally tip burn. And in conditions where you have extremely wet weather, and reason why in wet weather you'll have the problem, all I have said is the calcium moves via transpiration stream. When the weather is wet and cool, you don't have much uptake of water and minerals, right, in the transpiration stream. When the time is wet and windy, then you have a greater uptake of calcium or greater movements within your transpiration stream, right? And the next scenario, if the time is extremely dry, then you won't have adequate movements and nutrients. Two reasons: the plant is basically have gone into a wilted state, or there's not enough water around the roots for the movements of nutrients. Hollow stems for like cauliflower, basically generally boron deficiency, and boron has been proven to be an ideal nutrient for your leafy vegetables. For cabbage, generally, when boron is short, the leaf is brittle, and you get quick breaking of the leaf, especially on the wind problem. For cauliflower, you have riciness, where basically the flowering part of the plant extends above the head, and then you have the flower buds emerging, and sometimes this will display as white or purple. So anytime you grow in cauliflower and see there's as it said, as the name suggests, riciness appears to looks like rice, right? That's because the temperature has shifted, and then now the plant is basically entering like a bolting stage, right? So cauliflower is very susceptible to this, especially the temperature. But the fuzziness now is when your nighttime temperature is cool and your daytime temperature is hot. So that great shift in temperature triggers the plant to cause the pedicel of the plant to push up above the head. And then you have those little fuzzy ears appearing on the plant. So those are two general conditions for cauliflower. For cabbage now you have cracking, calcium deficiency as well, right? So you want to ensure that you have enough calcium to supplement that. And our solutions coming up right away. So this gives you basically a quick viewing of how you can apply your foliar fertilizers or biostimulant within your leafy vegetable. And here you realize I have up to 6 weeks, but for your cabbage, your cauliflower, and your broccoli, and those longer leaf vegetables, you can continue the week 6 application until the end of the crop. But generally, what you want to start out with, week 1, your agar leaf root max or your Miller solid grow, right? And those you can apply like about 10 gram per gallon. Followed by week 2, now your O mix by 20 mixed with your fortify, and you use that at 15 ml per gallon. Then when you shift to week 3 now, agar leaf Green Max plus your Root Max, and you can use both of them at about 10 to 15 gram per gallon. With week 4, you continue with your Omix Bio 20 and Fortify combination. And what the Omix Bio 20 will do is basically, with the biostimulant component, ease the stress that the plant is going through while contributing to quicker leaf growth. But the Fortify now will encourage more or contribute to greater root development, also allowing nutrients to move quickly throughout the plant, while the phosphate component is building up the immunity of the plant. So when you use your Fortify in a combination, you're basically bolstering the plant against any fungal attack. Right? The phosphate within the Fortify will bind to your fungicide active and carries it quickly around your plant to get effective control. All right, and then week 5 now, your Omix Fortify. What you want to do at this stage is ease off the Bio 20, because you don't want to supply the crop with too much nitrogen close to the end of the crop, because what you'll have happening is generally you have the same allostem. Allostem can be caused by the excess nitrogen in the late stage of the crop, all right? So usually see allostem in cauliflower and your broccoli and your cabbage. So ease off that high nitrogen application. You shift now to your Fortify Calmax B. The Fortify with the phosphate will bind to the calcium in the Calmax B and carries that quickly around the plant. So you are supplying calcium to prevent any splitting of your head. So you're getting larger heads, no cracking, no splitting, basically no tick burn of your plant, effective basically, and great head size. So for your leafy lettuce, your cauliflower, your broccoli, anything that you need to boost the weight, the Fortify Calmax D will do it. And you continue with the both of them until the end of the crop, because the Calmax will also contribute to the extended shelf life. So especially now, when after the rain, you generally see your cabbage rot quickly. Probably the calcium level is low or you have a fungal problem. But generally what you want to do, increase that calcium level so that when you put the cabbage on the shelf, yeah, you can have the supplier say, see, it's lasting, I can order some more, right? So you want to use your Omix Calmax B. All right, to shift now into your granular component, what we have, and this was just this is just showing one application, but for your extended vegetable that I said before, cabbage extraction, you can do a next application about 3 weeks after this. So you can do a next application about week 5, right? And with that, you can apply your 1122 and mix it with some amount of nitrogen. All right. So, but for this granular application of your Abodam 14-28-14, and you're using 5 gram with your Elixir Amosulfan. And the Elixir Amosulfan is basically gaining traction on the market because this sulfur with nitrogen base product is providing quicker greenery, uniform distribution, because with each grain of the amosulfan, you have your nitrogen and your sulfur mixed into that. So you don't have to worry about balancing your grain out. You're getting even distribution. Also, for persons who are using drip system, they have found out that this product is effective in basically applying it through your drip system because it dissolves very clean once you don't go over the concentration rate. And what I mean is that you don't want to apply half bag of this product to a 50 gallon drum. You want to only apply like about 5 to 7 pounds in 20 gallon and fertigate that through your system, right? Getting good result. But for granular application, combining the 14-28-14 with the amosulfan, making the application. So if you want this measurement in acre, we're looking at about 200 pounds of your Abodam and about 100 pounds of your amosulfan. And what you want to do, mix those products up and then you apply. You can do proper application, which I mean by applying and then covering up, that will be very excellent for your crop. All right. So remember, Abodam 14-28-14 plus your Elixir Amosulfan. All right. And for persons who are using soluble systems now, the fertigation or your bulk tank mix, there you go. You can start out with your agasol 15-30-15, and when you see the plus Mg plus Te, what it means is that the product is built in with your magnesium and your trace elements. So you don't have to worry about sourcing trace elements differently from your macronutrients. So that's why AgChem tries to provide options to you. We don't want to be basically going all over the place seeking. If you're new to farming and you want a one mix, we have that ready for you. If you're experienced and you want your macronutrients, we have that ready. So the Agasol will give you that one mix solution. And generally what I do every other day, small amounts, you're using about 7 pounds in 20 gallons, and you fertigate that in rotation with your calcium nitrate. So you do that for week 1 and 2, right? And then into week 3 and 4, going on to 5, 6, you can just glide with your Agasol 20-20-20 with trace elements. And I said before, these products are built in with your micronutrients. So you don't have to worry about mixing, right? Or getting any phytotoxicity. So this is it. And these products have been tested in hydroponic solution, which you're gonna see later in the presentation. All right, so after talking about the nutritional aspects, so let me show you what they can do. So this is a guy, Mr. Bailey, top left, from Sligo, St. Catherine. He had basically gone in, do some applications of our Omics products, right? And what after 3 application, the farmer realized that the heads he was getting were basically over a pound. They were bigger, they were more compact, while the control basically average about quarter pound and were much smaller. So he could get the weight out of his field within a short time. And with the beauty about these products, because a lot of farmers say, Johnny, but I don't want strictly larger heads. What he has found out is that he can use the product to gauge the time of his production. So if you don't want large heads, what he does is to do the application so he can has medium-sized heads coming in within a shorter time. So that's how you can basically be flexible with the program to get the performance that you're looking for. And then you have Mr. Spence, one of Mr. Parker's farmer out in Manchester, Banana Ground. Basically use the agar leaf green max, right? And what you're seeing after being treated with that product, you're seeing lettuce heads weighing about 1 to 1.5 pounds, which is very excellent for him. This guy was getting some half pounders, which wasn't ideal for his market. So he had contacted Mr. Parker to get a solution, and Parker gave him the agar leaf green max, right? So you're looking at a pound to a pound and a half consistently throughout the field. And with the formulation of 30-10-10 with micronutrients, you're getting effective results from these foliars. And as I stated before, AgChem tries to provide solutions for you or options for you. So we don't want to push on one product for you. If the pocket may not be there to reach a higher price product, you can come with a lower price option and get results as well. All right. In this slide now, you're seeing a hydroponic setup, and this is in St. Catherine, right? Still working with this guy, so not going to show the exact location, all right? But it's a hydroponic system. And over on the left, I done an application of Agasol 20-20-20 with trace elements plus your Agasol 9-18-36 with magnesium and trace elements. And the application was done on March 29th. And you see the stage of the plants, right? And then 7 days later, this is the growth to observe with just that one application of the products, right? The plant basically more than tripled in size over that 7 days period. And what we're trying to do now is fine tune the program to gauge production every week, right? So we're still working on gauging even tighter, bigger heads for this era. And these systems will be popular. You'll see some of them being showed in public media. But these are going to be popular systems that persons can implement in their area. If you're short on water, this is a good system to use, because where this house is located, the area is troubled with water supply, right? So this is an ideal system for an area like that. All right, and to wrap up, let me give you an understanding of what the costs you're looking at. So what I try to do is cover most of the factors that you will come across, but I didn't include the irrigation setup. And irrigation setup, the last price point I checked was probably about 280,000 to 290,000 per acre. That's to set up the irrigation system per acre. So you'd have to further minus that from your profit, but that will be a continuous, they call it now, component you'd have to consider. So land area, acre, crop maturity, and which shows the shorter term crop, 6 weeks. The density, depending on your planting space, you can plant them a foot or a foot and a half, right? And that will give you from 14,000 to 18,000 plants per acre. And with land preparation, 35,000, seed cost, 10,000, irrigation, this is the watering, 15,000, granular fertilizer, 19, labor, etc., right? So that round up to a total of $1,112,000, right? So that would be a total expense with your marketable yield, and for a crop yielding about a pound and a quarter per plant, we're getting about 16,000 pounds from that crop. And when we do our subtracting, we round out to, or when we do our multiplication, we're rounding out to about 800,000 per acre from the field, which round out to a profit of 687,200, right? So it's a decent profit for a crop that is coming out at 6 weeks. Decent. All right. If any further questions, you can go ahead. No, before the question, I have a question for the viewers, right? And this question, listen carefully, basically give you a chance to win Agassiz product. And this product is basically a biostimulant. So you're talking about your humic acid, your fulvic acid, where you can run it through your drip system, or you can drench it on your plant to help bolster your development. And usually we recommend using it with one of your agar leaf products, or you can use it with your Miller Nutrient Express, right? So listen out. All right, let me go ahead. And Georgia?
Yes, I'm here, Jonah.
Yeah, what we're taking, message or both? Let me know the option.
Yeah, both.
All right.
Both.
So listen up, viewers. Which product should be added to your Abadam 142814 when you're making your fertilizer application?
Elixir.
Elixir. Be more specific.
The name elude me. Elixir.
Come on, know the name. Come.
Hold on. Jeesh.
Can you please ask the question?
Which product should be added to your Abadam 142814 when you're making your granular application?
This Agassiz, not Elixir Agassiz, I'm not sure.
Is Urea?
No.
Is that red coated one, right? That red packaged one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The name elude me. I know it's Elixir or something.
Just remember the name is a combination of two products, so you can get that.
Oh, it's a sulfur and ammonia sulfur.
Come again.
Ammonia sulfur something.
Georgia, also
It's very
Ammonia.
close. Amosol. Elixir Amosol.
Yeah, man. Don't forget the name. Elixir is a brand, but don't forget the name. Amosol.
Okay.
Mr. Hansel, kindly send me your contact through a private message. Georgia.
All right, no problem, Georgia.
Yeah, listen to
Michelle.
So yes, that's a good one. That's a good one. So remember, farmers, the elixir amosulfan, and and I said before, it's a granular option, but we have found it to be effective in your soluble solution, so it can be dissolved cleanly without any traces. Right? Once you don't add too much to basically make the mixture too concentrated, you get good results out of that. So Callaloo guys are taking it up quickly. So try, so if you're going to do Irish potato, onion, or your leafy vegetable shortly, I tell you, get some amosulfan. And in terms of upcoming events, join us next week, Tuesday, July the 13th. We're going to focus on the AgriCare line of products, and those include the Indicarb, the Caratrax, the Capri, the Carbendazim, and Carzone. So if you want further information on that, you just join us next week, Tuesday, or shed some more light on those products. And what I'll tell farm viewers to do is to check out the AgChem page on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all over, and view some of the view the videos. If you basically have some spare time, to check
Will
out
this
the
be on
videos and
YouTube?
different products. Miss that? You're
Will
saying?
this presentation be on YouTube?
Yes, yes.
Thank God, because we're driving and we're missing out a lot out of it.
Oh no, man, don't worry, man. We always try to see the presentation. So
Yeah, I bought the Acrobat, but we're using it for dampening off. It's really great.
all right, thanks.
But I learned a lot seeing that. I used to allow my seedlings to, then I water them and I figure out that they're still getting dampening off, and I couldn't figure out why. But I heard today, found out that I need to create a constant moisture, but not a soaking, to make it work.
That's it. Yes, man, you get it right. So,
I lost a lot of seedlings for myself, by this. I'm like, every time I keep getting dampening off, man, like 200, 300 going, and I'm like, I'm not getting it right. But I figure out today, so I'm gonna try a new batch and see how it works.
Yeah, man. That's
Which
good.
area are you? Which area are you?
I'm in the Trelawney area, and I saw on a map right here that's a Dale Smith.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I just set up an 18 by 60 greenhouse. I had to take off the plastic because my wife was in fear of the hurricane coming. So at about 3 o'clock in the morning, when they said that it was going to pass to Jamaica, she said, hey, you have to get up. We're going to go up there. We're going to take off the plastic. So I haven't put it up back yet, but we're going to put in the pipe to do the hydroponics. And we have a seedling nursery with some square hydroponics pipes. So we're going to get that going. But as soon as it's up, then I'll see if I can contact Dale, see if he can come by and take a look and give us some advice.
Yeah, that's
Thank you. And also, you can send me your contact if you can.
Yes, not a problem.
You can send.
We want to try fertilizer from local. You know that we actually import fertilizer though, because we haven't gotten any good guidance with fertilizer here in Jamaica. I heard you guys.
What's your name, sir? What's your name?
My name is Terry Anderson. I think Alexia signed in, so she left the phone with me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right, I'll check it out and see it. But I'll try to figure out how to leave my number on this.
Or you can send us a message on Instagram at CarpChemJam.
Okay. I think I just found it. Let me just Terry Anderson. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks you. Well, there you go, viewers. That's a wrap. As I said before, just check out some videos. We'll be in the field. Yeah, I know that you may not be seeing us a lot, but we're working on materials in office, so we want to bring as much materials out to you. So in case it's much easier. You can get the message spread wider. But we're going to be back out in the field, doing some more activities, introducing you to some more products, some more crops. So check us out. Right, Georgia?
Yes,
Final word?
Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm hoping that you'll join us next week, Tuesday, same time, same login. All right. Thank you.
Yep. John, sir?
Sit there. Hello?
Listening to you guys, I'm a house full of water while me have to listen to you, get distracted.